You don't overthink big problems. You overthink the smallest things. A message you sent, a reply you didn't get, a tone that felt slightly off, or a moment that lasted just a second longer than usual. And somehow, that tiny moment stays with you. It doesn't leave. It sits quietly in your mind, and before you even realize it, your brain starts building something out of it. You begin asking questions. What did they mean? Did I say something wrong? Why did they respond like that? Did I overdo it? Did I sound weird? And even while all of this is happening, there's a part of you that knows this is small. You know it shouldn't matter this much, but knowing doesn't stop it. Because overthinking is not driven by logic. It's driven by the need to feel in control. Your brain is constantly trying to predict outcomes so it can protect you. It wants to avoid rejection, avoid embarrassment, avoid situations where you might feel exposed or misunderstood. And to do that, it starts analyzing everything in detail. It zooms into the smallest signals, the smallest changes, the smallest possibilities, not because they actually matter, but because they might matter. And that might is enough for your brain to take it seriously. That's where the loop begins. You replay the same moment again and again, not because you want to remember it, but because you want to fix it. You want to find a better version of what you said, a better response, a better outcome. You start imagining alternate versions of the same situation, as if one of them will finally give you peace. But it never does, because you're trying to solve something that doesn't have a clear answer. And your brain is not built to sit comfortably with uncertainty. It doesn't like, maybe. It doesn't like, I don't know. So instead of accepting that, it keeps thinking. It keeps creating possibilities, running scenarios, and rewriting conversations in your head. And the more it does that, the more real everything starts to feel. Even if nothing actually happened, your mind can make it feel like something did. And slowly, without noticing, you start trusting your thoughts more than reality. You begin reacting to things that exist only in your head. You change your behavior, you hold back, you assume meanings that were never confirmed. And all of this starts from something that was probably insignificant. But your brain doesn't treat it as insignificant once it attaches meaning to it. And that's the key. Once meaning is attached, it becomes hard to let go. It feels important, it feels real, and it keeps pulling your attention back to it. What most people don't understand is that overthinking small things is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of heightened awareness. You notice details that others ignore. You pick up on subtle shifts in tone, behavior, and energy. You read between the lines. You feel more deeply. And while that awareness can be powerful, without control, it turns against you. Because now every small thing feels important. Silence feels like rejection. Delay feels like disrespect. A slight change feels like something is wrong, even when nothing is actually wrong. Your brain is simply trying to make sense of everything, even when there is nothing to figure out. And that's where the real problem lies. Your brain is not comfortable with neutrality. It doesn't like situations where nothing is clearly right or wrong. It wants clarity. It wants meaning. It wants certainty. And when it doesn't get that, it creates its own version of the truth. A version that feels real, but isn't necessarily accurate. That's why you overthink. Not because something is broken in you, but because your mind is trying too hard to protect you from things that may never even happen. It is trying to prepare you, to keep you safe, to make sure you don't repeat mistakes or face uncomfortable situations. But in doing that, it creates a loop that keeps you stuck. You think more in order to feel better, but you end up feeling worse. Because overthinking feeds on attention. The more you engage with it, the stronger it becomes. It starts to feel automatic, like you don't even have control over it anymore. But the truth is, you don't need to stop thinking. That's not possible. What you need is to stop believing every thought that shows up in your mind. Not every thought is true. Not every thought deserves your attention. And not every thought needs a reaction. Sometimes a message is just a message. A delay is just a delay. A silence is just silence. There is no hidden meaning behind everything, even if your brain tries to convince you otherwise. Your mind is used to finding patterns and meanings. It's what it's designed to do. But it doesn't mean it's always right. And once you start seeing that, something changes. You stop reacting instantly. You create a small gap between the thought and your response. You start observing instead of engaging. The thought still comes, but you don't follow it as deeply as before. You let it pass without trying to fix it or solve it. And slowly, the intensity reduces. The loop doesn't disappear overnight, but it weakens. You feel a little lighter, a little calmer, a little more in control. Not because your mind has gone silent, but because you are no longer controlled by everything it produces. And in that moment, you realize something important. It was never about the small things. It was about how your mind reacted to them, how much meaning it attached, and how deeply it pulled you into something that didn't need that much attention in the first place.